It's been long said that humanity was destined to spread across the stars. Of course, few considered the scope and sheer expanse of such a venture. In the hundreds of years since Neil Armstrong first stepped upon the surface of the moon, what would eventually earn the name Inner Sphere would see the fulfillment of that destiny. Alexander Kerensky bravely took his forces into unknown space as a last resort. Comstar's Primus Sim's visions of the Inner Sphere's destruction drove further exploration, and even into the 3040s with the aid of Theodore Kurita, that exploration continued. However, that is not the end of mankind's exploration. We are not finished. If the Jade Falcon's relentless, suicidal drive toward Terra has taught us anything, it's that we are too reliant upon Terra and its surrounding systems. The future of humanity is outward, into the periphery. It's time for humans to spread across the stars. Captain Rin Barrett, Explorer Corps, 1st Arm, October 23rd, 3151. The Explorer Corps originated within the growing political and religious intrigue within Comstar. The 9th Primus, Adrienne Sims, began to have terrible nightmares in which she reportedly saw the destruction of the Inner Sphere under waves of strange monsters from outside settled space, including an emerald bird, a six-legged bear, and a metallic viper. True visions or simply the products of a rewriting of history, Primus Sims felt driven to act. She addressed the First Circuit in 2959 and proposed the formation of an organization that would be later known as the Explorer Corps. Sims believed that missions sent to explore systems and planets into the periphery could possibly locate the ultimate destination of Alexander Kerensky and the missing SLDF forces, as well as discover rich and plentiful new worlds prime for human settlement. Both of these goals would be important to the future of Comstar, as Sims pointed out. Kerensky's Exodus fleet continued to be a wild card threat to Comstar's power. Locating that fleet, or what was left of it, would be the Explorer Corps' top priority. Top talent was recruited from all across of Comstar's branches, with no stone unturned to find the best personnel possible. The first director of the Explorer Service, or DES for short, was Sergei Gravilov, a jumpship commander with a wealth of experience at the helm. As director, Gravilov spent 2960 diligently working to build working teams, units, and assembling the logistics necessary to fit ships with the supplies necessary for extended missions into uncharted space. Though the primary goal remained hunting down Kerensky's fleet, many worlds were rediscovered in the process. Some of them were up to 1,500 light-years from Terra. Some of the people on these planets were stranded or otherwise insulated from the trials and tribulations of the events of the Inner Sphere. Some of them even preferred to be. Some of these populated planets were marked for later recontact in an effort to bring them back into the fold of the Inner Sphere. Some were kept secret for reasons classified still today. Following Gravilov's retirement, Presenter Athena Heath took over as DES and continued the work started by her predecessor, as well as organizing purely scientific missions to improve understanding of the cosmos and humanity's place within it. The Explorer Corps jumpships Fortitude and Discovery traveled to an M-class Orion Nebula more than 1,600 light-years from Terra in 2982. There they spent 3 months gathering data, running experiments, and plotting locations for future jumps. At the time, this mission was the furthest recorded distance of a human being from Terran soil. Studying unique binary star systems, black holes, and other phenomena in the cosmos generated such a large amount of data that it would take decades, if not centuries, to study it all. When D.S. Heath passed away in 3021, she was succeeded by Sumair Hayama, who was a doctor of astronomy and deeply committed to the mission of the Explorer Corps. Before accepting the position of Director of Explorer Service, she was working as a researcher and scientific analyst, working with data generated by the Explorer Corps missions. All available reports described Director Hayama as an extremely capable leader with a keen analytical mind. Under her leadership, the Explorer Corps expanded its mission to include keeping tabs on missions into the periphery sent by the major Inner Sphere houses. Though Comstar did not interfere with these missions, at least not officially, They did want to make sure that any signs of the Kerensky Exodus fleet or rediscovered technology made its way back to Comstar hands. In one incident, a scavenger fleet jumped into a Periphery system and discovered a fleet of mothballed warships, jump ships, and dropships rimward of the Federated Commonwealth. This kind of imbalancing discovery was exactly the sort of thing that Comstar wanted to know about. As it turned out, the ships belonged to the Wolf's Dragoons, who had left them there on their journey to the Inner Sphere from Clan Space back in 3004. The Dragoons were notified and sent a contingent to successfully recover the vessels, which then catapulted the mercenary company beyond the wildest dreams of the lowly merc to then have one of the most powerful naval forces in the Inner Sphere. One of the most substantive discoveries of the Comstar-era Explorer Corps was found during a survey of a system known as Epsilon Pegasus, which is roughly 780 light-years coreward of Terra. Upon arrival, the Explorer Corps team aboard the ECV von Braun jumpship began their usual surveying procedure. The planet designated Pegasus 4 was deemed the most habitable and was further scanned for signs of previous or current human habitation. Most of the time, these scans turned up nothing of note. However, on Pegasus 4, after several weeks of scanning the continents on the planet's surface, the team detected signs of human habitation. It was assumed that this was an abandoned colony, as the structures and airfields showed deterioration and a lack of upkeep. The explorers carefully approached the site on foot after sending several unmanned drones to survey the site. The place had been long abandoned, and it was quite large and showed that it was more than just a failed attempt at colonization. An early theory of the site's purpose was that it was intended to gather scientific data far from the radio noise of the Inner Sphere. However, the sheer size of the complex, as well as later information discovered, put that theory to rest. When the team was able to retrieve data from the computer systems on site, they learned that it was called Columbus, and curiously enough, it was a base of operations for the Star League equivalent of the Explorer Corps. While there was not a great amount of information from missions sent out from Columbus, the site did have several examples of lost tech, and accounts from a curious encounter with an unidentified jumpship that entered the Columbus system in 2755. The jumpship was painted with swirling, intricate designs and ignored repeated attempts at communication from the surface. It stayed several days without deploying a jump sail before jumping out of the system just before ships from Columbus could reach it. The mysterious vessel must have been tracked somehow, as records show a considerable number of people from the Columbus site left in pursuit. Transmission records from Columbus end in late 2756, but the contents of the messages sent were not recoverable because the on-site HPG recorder had been removed when the base was mothballed shortly before Kerensky's exodus from the Inner Sphere. In March of 3031, DES Hayama resigned from her post following a rather ill-defined personal conflict with the new head of Comstar, Mindo Waterley. It must have been substantial, as Hayama ended up leaving Comstar entirely, abandoning her life's work and disappearing from the historical record. Her replacement as director of the Explorer Corps was a Waterley acolyte named Kennedy Adumbe. Under Adumbe's leadership, the Explorer program was expanded even further. The Outbound Light was an Explorer Corps jumpship that began its mission in 3046 to explore areas outside Federated Commonwealth space. It was well equipped with 2 dropships, and the 53 crew were prepared for a long journey. That journey would end up being much longer than anyone expected, as the jumpship ended up jumping into a system controlled by Clan Smoke Jaguar. It was made all the more significant as the system included the Jaguar homeworld, Huntress. The clan forces reacted quickly and seized the Outbound Light. Under investigation, the crew of the Outbound Light shared some of the best information that the clans had received from the Inner Sphere in many years. That information, along with the arrival of the Outbound Light in clan-controlled space, was used by the Smoke Jaguars to paint a picture of the Inner Sphere on the verge of launching an invasion against the clan homeworlds. The Smoke Jaguar Khan, Leo Showers, wove a fantastic yet convincing tale which suggested that if the clans didn't launch an invasion into the Inner Sphere immediately, they risked total obliteration by the united Inner Sphere. The clan council was moved to finally break their deadlock between Crusader and Warden clans, voting in favor of moving forward with Operation Revival. the plans drawn up for an invasion of the Inner Sphere and a drive toward Terra. Operation Revival would go unnoticed by the Inner Sphere as activity in the region was light and the outbound light wasn't due back for at least another year. Their absence would not ring alarm bells before the first clan strikes against Inner Sphere planets. It was an unfortunate result that Comstar's desire to discover the fate of Kerensky's SLDF fleet would end up triggering an invasion that would threaten to tear the entire Inner Sphere to scrap. There were attempts to establish communication with the 4 invading clans. 2 Explorer Corps jump ships were destroyed after they entered a system occupied by Clan Smoke Jaguar. They did not respond to the clan's Bachal, and it sealed their fate. Eventually, in 3049, an explorer ship was able to successfully establish contact with a clan ship. The line of communication led Percenter Marshal Anastasius Falk to tentatively ally with the clans. It wasn't until Comstar discovered that the clans had designs on conquering Terra did that alliance fall apart. With the clans winning victory after victory, moving closer to Terra with every passing week, Comstar began to shift gears and ramp up to face this oncoming juggernaut. It would culminate in the negotiated battle over a rather insignificant planet called Tukiad, where the consequences of the chain of events started with the outbound light would come to a brutal, if substantial, conclusion. The clans were forced into a temporary peace that would give the Inner Sphere a chance at creating a new status quo. For Comstar, gridlock with very little in the way of border changes was a win condition. However, the win at Tukiad would weaken Comstar significantly. Time and money spent rebuilding the Comguard sapped resources from the other Comstar ventures. This included the Explorer Corps. When DES Adombe left Comstar to join the Word of Blake, it left the Corps leaderless, which weakened the organization further. Salvation for the Explorer Corps would come from outside of Comstar in the Word of Blake. Theodore Kurita, Deputy of Military Affairs in the Draconis Combine, was not content with sitting back and waiting for the clans to renew their invasion of the Inner Sphere. He sought to bring war to the clan homeworlds. In order to do this, he would need the sort of valuable intel that the Explorer Corps could generate with their fleet of ships. After substantial talks with Percenter Marshal Falk, it was agreed that the Explorer Corps would act as forward scouts for an eventual counter-invasion. Funding for this effort would come from the Draconis Combine, even though officially the Explorer Corps would remain part of Comstar. For all intents and purposes, the Explorer Corps were acting as mercenary scouts under Combine paymasters. After all this time, the primary directive of the Corps remained the same. It was still finding the ultimate destination of Kerensky's Exodus fleet. This new phase of Explorer Corps history required considerable flexibility and adaptation as Draconis Combine assets were added to the Corps organization. Some criticized Kurita by equating the situation with the hiring of mercenaries, though both the importance of the mission and the fact that the Explorer Corps were not frontline soldiers tempered that critique. By 3053, the Explorer Corps had a new DES named Paidraig O. Bawil, who had more than 30 years of experience within the organization. He knew how it functioned and was very hands-on, which produced results as the Explorer Corps actively searched through data looking for signs of the clan homeworlds. The Explorer Corps established bases around most of the House Periphery borders and started to set up waypoint stations further out into the Periphery. The Columbus base at Epsilon Pegasus was reactivated and expanded, which provided the Corps with an outpost 270 light-years coreward of nowhere in the Draconis Combine. From there, they could resupply and launch missions that could travel deeper into unknown territory. Columbus became a hub for most of the activity in that region over the next 5 years. There were setbacks, however, as the political situation in the Inner Sphere became unstable with the Federated Commonwealth Civil War, and with the increasing number of clan attacks on worlds above the truce line. When the Word of Blake forces seized Terra, operations within the Explorer Corps were not too heavily impacted, as much of the leadership of the Corps was operating on-site near or in the Periphery. Since funding was coming from the Draconis Combine, the only real impact was a delay in the delivery of new vessels from shipyards in the Terran system. In early December 3068, a Word of Blake strike force jumped into Epsilon Pegasus system and obliterated the Columbus headquarters in a coordinated strike. This caused irreparable harm to what remained of the once great Explorer Corps and killed a significant number of key leaders. During the Dark Age, many of the functions of the Explorer Corps were reduced and missions were scrapped due to the lack of resources and connections for funding. Some explorers were lured to the other scientific ventures like Interstellar Expeditions, which is a company created in 2974 which carried out many of the same activities once in the Explorer Corps wheelhouse. During the widespread destruction and chaos caused by the Word of Blake, the Explorer Corps would be further set back. Without a financial backer, facilities, and funding, the future of Explorer Corps looked to be in doubt. This is the introduction to what I hope will be a fun series of videos that will explore the Periphery in the Battletech universe. This history of the Comstar Explorer Corps is necessary to build a common understanding of the events and a mission statement that will guide later lore and frog fiction videos. I'm looking forward to sharing my first story from a new Explorer Corps mission very soon. Thank you for watching. If you appreciate these videos and the prospect of exploring some of the lesser-known history of the Inner Sphere, as well as taking some creative license to generate some new fiction to promote Battletech, let me know in the comments below. If you are in the mood, likes and follows feed my base desire for affirmation, so feel free to do those if you feel so compelled. Big thanks as always to the Ko-Fi supporters. You are the Mech's knees. Now go take care and go make the world a slightly better place today and tomorrow.